Hi everyone, it's Owen here. I'm going to be walking you guys through my interactive Jupyter notebook that I created for my final project. And I thought, what better thing to explore than college basketball, as we are in March and conference tournaments and March Madness are coming up. And this is my second or third time trying to record because I keep running out of time. So I'm going to try and gloss over some of the less exciting things and get right to the charts and let you guys know what I noticed, what I thought was pretty cool. Um, so obviously you're just loading all our packages, and then the data I just copied right from KenPom website. I just took the top 80 teams because I wanted to include tournament teams and then some prospective bubble teams. And I was going to do top 75, but on Monday when I copied and saved the data, Syracuse was in the 79 slot for adjusted efficiency margin. So I decided to do top 80 so I could see how they compare to some of these really good college basketball teams. And then I've got definitions for these metrics that I'm using in these charts, just so you guys can have some intuition when looking at them and follow along with what I'm saying. So one thing I wanted to do is I didn't want to just create scatter plots to show distributions or relationships. I wanted to be able to use team logos as data points. So when you look at it, you see your favorite team right off the bat, or you see, those top contenders and see like, how they match up against each other. So, um, sportslogos.net has all of these college basketball logos. And so, first thing I did is I created a list of the URLs from sportslogos.net. And then here I have some code which initializes two empty lists for the team logos and the names, and then a function that retrieves the HTML data from these web pages, and then I iterate through the URLs to Beautiful Soup, and that allows me to grab the image items, and then following the images in the HTML data was text that contained the team and the mascot. And so that's what this item.nextElement method is doing right here. It grabs the text following the images. And so I append those to these empty lists. I have a list comprehension that just grabs the GIF types. There were a couple images that were in there that were just web page images or decals that weren't the team logos. So I did that, and then I checked the length of the team logos um, so I can refer back to it when I finish parsing the team names, just to make sure they match up when I create the data frame. And so that's what I do here. I split the team names. There's a bunch of backslashes and T's and apostrophes and all that. So I split the team names list into lists, and then I iterate through it, and I noticed that the greatest string of this HTML backslash nonsense was like three or four. Um, and so I have this if statement that grabs the items that are strings greater than 6 in length. So that resulted in me just getting the team names, which is what I wanted. And then I check that the length is the same as the team logos that we are looking at above. Then I create this data frame from these two lists that I have now. And then this was a conundrum that I went through. I was having trouble taking these team names um, from KenPom and then merging them with the team name and mascot from the Sports Logos website. And so, I mean, there are just a lot of special cases with the states, BYU, and then like you got your what is it? I'm thinking like Fighting Illini, like your two like 2 word mascot names. Like we got Marquette's like Golden Eagles, got the Golden Gophers in there, I'm pretty sure. Um, so I decided to just bite the bullet and brute force it. So I sorted the KenPom teams by name, and then I had this list open, and I just wrote them all down, just typed them all so I could merge it because it was getting too frustrating. So I decided to just brute force that whole thing so I could merge them properly without any mistakes. And that's what you see down here. I sort it and then I merge it, make sure that the team logos and the team names lengths were adding up, and then I merge it so then I have this KenPom data with the team name and mascot, and then this path column is the GIF URL. And so after that, I realized that the GIF address was not very useful in the annotation aspect of it, which we'll get to later on. And so what I did was I had to create a for loop that would read the GIF URL and then save it to a new column in the KenPom data frame called new path. And so I created that address in the working directory using the KenPom team right here. Then I just checked to make sure that the first and last output were correct, and that was Houston and North Texas. So that's just how I checked to make sure everything was working along the way. And now here we get to the good stuff. First thing I wanted to do was see what conferences made up these top 80 teams, and to no surprise, we got the Big 12, Big 10, SEC, Big East, ACC, and Mountain West taking the cake here with a substantial number of teams in the top 80. Being a Syracuse basketball fan or Syracuse sports fan growing up all my life, I have a special place in my heart for the Big East, ACC kinda, and then Mountain West. I watch a lot of Mountain West basketball because those are the games that are on late at night when nothing else is on. So I find myself watching a lot of Mountain West games. And then moving on, I wanted to show first just um, adjusted defensive efficiency and adjusted offensive efficiency. Um, I just wanted to create a scatter plot with these teams on there, and then I created lines for the averages, and these aren't averages across the NCAA. These are the averages from the top 80 teams that I grabbed from KenPom. So even the teams that are in the bottom left quadrant, um, even though they're below average in both aspects, offensive and defensive efficiency, they are essentially average because these are the top 80 teams. And then I have some text just annotating those lines. And then I create a function that takes the image path from my working directory and just opens it, and then this is a function that I use in the annotation step, which annotates the team logos onto the chart. And then I save it down there, and this is what I ended up with my first chart. I'm pretty proud of it. I thought it was pretty cool. You can see your favorite team at a quick glance, and all these big name teams really pop out. You got Houston, Iowa State, Tennessee up here, Alabama and Illinois down here, and then UConn, Purdue. Anyway, one of the things that I really like about this chart, and it gives us some intuition and some background for when we're watching these conference tournaments and March Madness, is you not only understand where teams thrive and where they aren't so great, but it really shows you the character of the teams and how they like to play. And one of the questions that I was thinking about as I was creating these charts and looking at these metrics is, how does a team like Iowa State that has an incredible defensive efficiency, but they're below average on the offensive side, how do they match up against a team like Alabama, where their whole game is offense, and they let up a lot of points. Like, we all know that college basketball is an emotional game the atmosphere is insane, unlike any other sport. And it's very interesting to see when these teams are on a neutral court and you don't really have, I mean, the fans are still, loving it. It's a great competition every year, but there's something about that home crowd that's undeniable. So when you put these teams on a neutral court, what aspects of the game are going to prevail. So I thought that was really interesting, and it gives you some character behind these teams. Like we know Virginia to be a great defensive team, but they're dead last in top 80 for the offensive efficiency. And from watching Virginia games, it's it's not entirely exciting. It's essentially a brick fest. Um, so that was the first thing, and then if I had more time, one of the things that I tried to do but was unsuccessful is removing the white space behind these logos. So I tried to do that, but it ended up messing up some of the logos that were primarily white. So like in here where we have these clusters, you can't see them super well. So if I had more time, that's something that I would do. But as a loophole, I decided to create an interactive scatter plot where you can filter by the conference. So we have this little drop down here, and you can select any conference that you want. See, now we just have the Big 12. Oklahoma you couldn't see super well in this one. TCU still covered up a little bit, but it allows you to see these teams a little bit more and really dive into the conference opponents and how they play each other. I think it's interesting for the Big 12 that the only team we see in this top right quadrant, even though TCU and Texas are like right on the average lines, they're the only team in this top right quadrant where they're above average of the top 80. Um, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And then another thing I saw was in the Big East, and I love Big East basketball, and I think they're one of the most competitive conferences year in, year out. I thought it was interesting. There's almost a band that goes across the middle where we see a lot of variation in the offensive efficiency, but the defensive efficiency is almost every team is between 95 and 100. Butler's just a little bit worse on the defensive side. So I thought that was pretty cool. And looking at the Mountain West, it's just a big cluster. And I love Mountain West basketball as I aforementioned, but I thought it was interesting that Utah State, Nevada, I think that's New Mexico, Colorado State, and then you can't quite see it, but Boise State is hiding right behind Colorado State right there. So we have 5 teams right here alone that are um, almost the epitome of average. So, well, epitome of average of the top 80. I keep saying that, but it's just an important qualifier. So I'm very interested to see how these teams play in the tournament because would you rather be really good at offense or really good at defense or smack dab in the middle in both metrics? So on a neutral court when you don't really have that momentum builder from the crowd, I think that's really something interesting to look at. And then along with this chart, I created this just another conference filter. So you can look at, these specific values associated. We can see that the adjusted defense for these teams and the adjusted offense, that there isn't really much variance here. It's a lot of the same.